Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody to this meeting for Tuesday, May 9th. The second item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and a prayer by Pastor Kim Geary of Trinity United Methodist Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. God of each sunrise and new day, we give you thanks for all that is good that comes from you and the many blessings in our lives. As individuals and a county community, help us increase what is good and decrease what is bad. Give us courage and strength to face injustices and make needed changes. Today, Lord, direct our leaders as they plan for the greater good of those in our county. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Again, welcome everyone to the meeting today. Do not have any other announcements. Moving on to item 4, public comment for items not on the agenda. I know I have at least one. Casey Swartz would like to speak. Casey.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll try to speak up. I know it's kind of hard to hear. So, my name is Casey Swartz. I live at 207 Buckskin Road here in Hutchinson. I'd like to comment on the RFQ you have out for a medical consultant to assist the county health officer. A day after this commission voted March 28th to put out the RFQ, I heard a rumor that replacing Dr. Scott Polly was a foregone conclusion, and that the new physician would most likely be Dr. Deanna Marshall from Prairie Star in Hutchinson. I keep my ear pretty close to the ground, and I hear a lot of rumors, so I simply filed it away as a curiosity. Then at last week's Reno County's Republican meeting, Mark Steffen stepped up to tell the audience that the two candidates who had applied were Dr. Polly and Dr. Marshall. He went on to explain how Dr. Polly was a proponent of shutting down businesses and spreading fear through the community. Mr. Steffen implored the group to make Dr. Polly, quote, responsible for what he did, and to contact this commission to make sure he didn't retain his job. Throughout the pandemic, I watched every commission meeting. Dr. Polly, the Reno County Health Department, Commissioners Ron Sellers, Ron Hurst, and Daniel Friesen did an outstanding job of dealing with an extremely difficult situation and shifting information. In contrast, Dr. Marshall testified this year in favor of SB 6, a Kansas Senate bill introduced by Mark Steffen, which restricts the authority of the Secretary of Health and Environment and local health officers to prevent the introduction and spread of infectious or contagious diseases. In her written testimony, Dr. Marshall stated that the entire pandemic was political, that masks were ineffective, and her biggest concern were the experimental vaccine injections. Her opinions seem to align well with Mr. Steffen's. Commissioners, you have a tough choice to make. Now, as a society, if we're lucky, all of us in this room will be long gone by the time another coronavirus pandemic breaks out. So whatever decision you make today most likely won't have a significant practical effect. However, in the court of public opinion, your decision will have a major effect. In my opinion, if you choose Dr. Polly, you'll side with logic, science, facts, and reason. You will also likely disappoint a certain very loud state senator and his supporters who seem to want to relitigate the pandemic using an alternative set of facts. If you choose Dr. Marshall, you'll send a strong signal to your own health department and to the public. Many will see it as retribution and possibly even scapegoating. That Mr. Stephan's shadow looms large on the commission. I ask that you make a decision based solely on science and the facts. In my and many other people's opinion, Dr. Polly did an excellent job, and I urge that he be retained. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Is there anyone else here for public comment not on the agenda? Is there any, so I have one revision, unless there's concern from the commission. I think we're going to flip items 7B and C. It's the same presenter, but I thought it might be good for you guys to hear the update before the fees conversation. Is there any concern with that? No. Does the commission have any other agenda issues, changes? No. Staff? No. Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, item 6.
Place for comment.
Sure.
I think we ought to discuss 6C just a little bit further, the options in that. No, not 6C, 6. Well, hear a little bit more about it. Is that why you're here, Don? Talk a little bit more about the Woody Seat project.
I heard that there's going to be a question, so.
Yeah.
Don?
I think it'd be good to have some questions if you could about some of that.
Do we want to move into doing it an agenda item then? Maybe, or?
Well, I think
can-
clarity
we can-
is all I wanted on some things because I wasn't here when the project was for those of us that are new.
How about we do this? Let's see if there's a motion to approve the consent agenda and we can discuss it in the discussion.
That's fine.
And then, because I think we'll be
We
able
could still move it if we thought we had to.
Yeah, okay.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented by staff.
Commissioner Hurst moves. Is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. Okay. Commissioner Parks, you have a question on 6C?
Can you open that up, Randy? The comments on that, I can't do it on my for some reason right now. Well, because the three of us wasn't here, I kind of followed the project, but I thought there might be some questions about this, Don, that would be good. Number-wise, I wanted to know exactly where we was at as a county, and I understand it's coming out of the Road and Bridge Fund, but our obligations are with the whole project or just the bridge part of it?
Just the bridge.
Just the bridge part of it, okay.
What,
That's what I understood.
yeah, there was a grant to come along. The total amount of the grant was $1.5 million. And I was going to apply for a grant for a 50-50 cost share on the bridge. And after I went to a meeting with Randy last summer, almost a year ago, it was the governor at the time said, you know, having joint participation between cities and counties or whatever would really be looked at favorably. So at that point, I told Randy and the mayor at that time of the city that I'd like to do a joint and try to get the whole 1.5 million instead of just 50% of our project.
Right.
That would be helping the city too. So that's what we did, and we was awarded the entire amount, 1.5 million. And to be fair on it, the county, our project is the bridge and theirs is north of the bridge. It's two separate projects, but it's a joint grant.
Right.
And so for it to come out fair, how it was estimated cost, we each pay 58% of the cost of construction of our projects, which totaled to $1.5 million. So that calculated to where the county would receive $600,000 and the city would receive $900,000. So that's why I did that, so that we could both get money. We may have suffered a little bit by not getting as much, but it was worth it for the city to get $900,000 on a very needed project north of that bridge.
Yeah, it is. I agree with that. So, okay, I just wanted some clarity on where we was at with that, so I understood it, so.
Is that all you needed?
Any other questions for Don while he's up there? None? Thank you, Don.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or discussion on the motion for the consent agenda?
Really just think that was a great move on the county's part to get the project. I don't think we would have gotten that had it not been for the joint work.
I drive that way every day, so.
Hearing no further comments, roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogler,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitesall,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to 7A. Sheriff is here for his annual update. Welcome.
Good morning. So as I was trying to type up this update, I tried not to get too windy. To actually put everything on paper that we do, we'd probably be here a lot longer. But the Reno County Sheriff's Office mission is to ensure the highest level of public safety while protecting the rights and dignity of those we serve through community partnerships and unbiased enforcement of the law. The Reno County Sheriff's Office is staffed at 99 personnel, 83 full-time sworn deputies, 12 civilian support staff, 4 part-time offender registry personnel. The administration of the Sheriff's Office consists of myself, Under Sheriff Sean McKaylee, Captain of the Detective Division, Captain Sean McClay, Captain of the Patrol Division, Steve Lutz, and Captain of the Jail Division, Levi Blumenhurst. Captains, lieutenants, sergeants, and corporals are responsible for setting and maintaining high-quality standards and discipline in daily operations and making intent-driven decisions. These deputies also serve as the standard bearers and role models vital to training, educating, and developing subordinates. Through training, coaching, mentoring, counseling, and informal interaction, they guide the development of deputies on an everyday basis and play a role in the development. Development is managed at all levels through transparent and honest feedback to allow for individual growth. Every leader within the Sheriff's Office is responsible for assisting deputies with developing a career-oriented model for professional development and that encompasses short-term and long-term goal requirements, education requirements, and provides a diverse background for the agency. The education and career management processes are how we are measured against each other for service in challenging positions of greater responsibility. Deputies should plan for a career that embraces the continuous learning model over the course of their career and encompasses the 3 pillars of leader development, education, training, and experience. The sheriff is responsible for maintaining the county jail, civil process, offender registration, concealed carry permit processing, along with preserving the peace, just to name a few by statute. The Reno County Correctional Facility is a 250-bed facility which is ran by a detail of 8 deputies, supervised by a sergeant 24 hours a day. The staffing level in the correctional facility is currently down to 7 deputies in this division. Several have located to be near family or better pay, and recently Don Evans has retired. The population of the facility has been around 190 plus inmates incarcerated for some time now. Daily, a deputy in the jail deals with the persons that are drunk, high, and mentally unstable people which act erratic and tend to treat deputies very poorly, although deputies are required to process these persons. Process means each person is arrested and coming into the facility gets booked in on the appropriate charges, fingerprinted, photographed, and other in-processing protocols based on whether the person is posting bond for release or will be going in the general population. There are a lot of computer work, paperwork, and several questionnaires requiring information, along with photos, fingerprints, and dressing out process for the population in the housing. These processes can go well, providing the person is not high or intoxicated and requiring a detox. There are generally several events always going on in the facility. Linen being exchanged, hygiene items being refilled, canteen being distributed, meals being served, video court being held, medications being passed, sick call being conducted, and staff dealing with a violent inmate. Along with these duties, there are approximately 10 different programs happening throughout the week to assist inmates which are housed within the facility for any length of time. This includes the GED program. Since its inception, there have been a total of 42 people who have received their GED within the facility. That averages 5 a year. For the year of 2022, a total of 1,913 persons were booked into the Reno County Correctional Facility. The facility has a transport team currently of 4 deputies, which moves inmates to and from court and transports inmates to medical and dental appointments as required. They also travel across the state to bring inmates from the state facilities back to Reno County for court proceedings and back to the state facility. For the year 2022, a total of 38,813 miles were driven to move inmates. 2,498 inmates were actually taken to court. We also have a continued partnership with Horizons. There is currently one Horizons employee which works within the facility. Typically there are two, a licensed counselor. However, this person is left to fulfill other obligations for Horizons, and the clinician is being filled by a part-time employee, and of course the case manager that is there. The case manager's job, in summary, are to identify persons being admitted into the facility which have a severe mental illness and reduce the amount of time and resources within the judicial system that can be spent when they need mental health. The case manager is there to assist them after their release and attend appointments, court dates, and ensure they're taking their medications for up to 6 months after the release. The patrol division consists of a civil process, courthouse security, reserves, cadets, and of course patrol. Special units would consist of the special response team, honor guard, drone team, town liaison, K9, and senior patrol. For the sake of everyone's time, I won't expand on every operational aspect and focus on patrol itself. For a deputy to be allowed to patrol by themselves, they must first attend 14 weeks of training at the Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center, which upon graduation, they go through a 1-weekend service training over protocols and policies by various agency instructors. These deputies then go through another 14 weeks of field training. During the 14 weeks, they progress from being told every move of their training officer to conducting business on their own. They are monitored closely, and a daily observation report is made each day to discuss positive interactions and negative interactions. The training is evaluated by the field training director and a patrol sergeant and the patrol captain. Remedial training may be necessary if the rookie deputy is not meeting standard, and they may go back to operating in the jail or be terminated. The county consists of 1,257 square miles, which is broken down into 3 beats. Each beat has a patrol deputy assigned to respond for calls for service which are assigned to their beat. Typically, there is a supervisor which will respond to specific calls for backup and provide guidance and direction on how a deputy responds, investigates, and approves paperwork to be sent for further investigation or prosecution, just to name a few. The case reports which are made will be sent to the detective division to determine if further investigation is necessary. During the year 2022, there were a total of 13,228 calls, either dispatched or officer initiated. 5,100 of those were traffic stops initiated by a deputy. The Civil Process Department is on the 2nd floor in the courthouse. There are 3 uniformed deputies and 2 civilians which can serve up to 1,400 writs, subpoenas, orders, protection from stalking orders, protection from abuse orders, and evictions in a month. The patrol division is currently down 2 deputies, one left for employment in Ellis County, I believe, and the other one we had Sergeant Newton that just recently retired a week ago. Deputies removed from the jail based on staffing levels. Currently, there are 2 within the field training program, and one is about to complete the program, and the other one just started and just graduated the academy a little over a week ago. We continue to take part in the Kansas Traffic Safety Grant, which pays deputies to work overtime and enforce specific traffic laws during specific times throughout the year. For example, on April 7th, there was a saturation patrol conducted specifically to look and arrest any persons driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. This is where deputies that are off can sign up and they can come out and get paid overtime to saturate a certain portion of the county to specifically look for drunk driving. There were 6 officers that conducted that saturation patrol, and there's 21 stops, 1 DUI arrest, and 1 drug arrest. Beginning May 22nd through June 4th is our Click It or Ticket campaign. Additional deputies will be working overtime to enforce primarily seatbelt laws. The overtime is reimbursed by the state and goes into the general fund. The investigations division is a plainclothes division which consists of 8 sergeants, 5 deputies, and 4 civilian employees who are responsible for felony arrest service, case investigations, crime analysis, drug enforcement, forensic computer analysis, fugitive extradition, juvenile matters, offender registration, concealed carry permits, and support staff. Detectives are also responsible for overseeing the Crime Stoppers of Reno County, hostage negotiation, and various additional duties. They receive cases made by patrol, assigning them by the captain for follow-up investigation based on the ability to create and continue leads until the case is resolved or closed for lack of leads. 2 of these detectives are certified in the forensic investigation of electronic devices. This is an extensive school which allows the download and analysis of cell phones. For the last year, they've downloaded a total of 61 cell phones and analyzed approximately 1,535 gigs of data. I asked them not to break it down into total numbers of photos, messages, and videos, because that would be too time consuming. This is just an example of the additional duties that deputies in this division are expected to perform in order for the agency to be successful. In the offender registry office, we are short one compliance deputy out of the 2 positions assigned to that office. There are also 4 part-time clerks working in this office. This team keeps track of 524 registered offenders in Reno County. Over 3 of them are currently incarcerated. They follow up and identify if these offenders remain within compliance of the court-ordered identifier. If offenders are identified as non-compliant, these deputies will investigate and send the case up to the district attorney's office for prosecution. There are 2 detectives which are primarily assigned to serve felony warrants issued by the courts. There is 1 clerk assigned to oversee the administrative requirements of these warrants. These warrants are required to be entered into NCIC, which is the National Crime Information Center. For nationwide alert is if the individual is stopped anywhere in the nation. Should they be taken into custody, the detectives will retrieve them and bring them back for prosecution. This is done by weighing the cost of the auto versus a plane. Sometimes they'll drive 16 hours to retrieve somebody, stay overnight, pick them up, and bring them straight back. For the year 2022, there were a total of 1,063 warrants entered into the system. For the year, there were 952 warrants served, and currently Reno County has 1,401 felony warrants entered into the system. The Sheriff's Office is currently working on 2 different projects. First being a software update within the facility. It's currently on hold due to some upcoming changes in software to make it more compatible with the equipment that we currently have in place, which hopefully will make it more affordable. The second is a firing range and training facility project. The main berm has been completed due to the cooperation with solid waste and the great employees out there working on it when time permits. We're currently looking at getting that berm hydro-seeded with some quotes and getting some grass growing and prune erosion should we ever see it rain. Our partnership with Hutton has allowed them to propose a facility and maximum cost to proceed with that project. I hope to begin a conversation with that soon. I wanted to remind everyone this is still in progress. Meetings with the city will continue. Myself and the county administrator has tried to set up meetings with the city. We've had to reschedule. As far as the budget, without going into a deep dive on that topic, we will save that for a later date, I believe. But I wanted to throw out that there will be an increased request with our budget due to economy increases and things out of our control. Food for inmates, fuel, repairs, utilities, and contractual service. Items that we need to operate the facility and the remainder of the agency. In closing, I'd just like to remind you a little bit about a ceremony that we'll be having for Memorial Officer Week, Police Week, this Friday at 11 o'clock in front of Law Enforcement Center. Any questions, gentlemen?
Questions? Commissioner Hurst?
One comment. With
Yes, sir.
Armed Forces Day coming up,
Yes, sir.
I would thank those in the Sheriff's Department who have served and are serving in the Armed Forces.
Thank you, sir. It's much appreciated. I will pass it on.
Where are we at with the shooting range and getting you guys a place to do that? Like, are we still stalled, or is there any progress being made?
So there is progress. It's an ongoing project. Right now, just the dirt work is being done. Like I said, the main berm is completed. I think that was completed last week because solid waste, she's allowed her equipment and personnel to go over there when time permits and do some work over there. They're working on 2 other berms, the smaller berms. Hutton has came back with a design and a cost because they're a design build team. That's the direction that we decided to go a while back. We've had to ask them to change it several times based on attempting to look for funding. We thought we had a good lead on some funding through some congressional spending, but that changed. Apparently they don't issue that money for new builds. So we're in the process. They came back and we just received probably a little over a week ago a more refined budget cost on that. Again, we wanted to meet with the city to make sure that we weren't duplicating any type of resources within the county between the 2. As soon as we get that, I think we'll be able to go into talks a little bit more on what we anticipate and ask to move forward.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bogner? Barnes? Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate all the work. I echo all the comments and thanks to all of your men and women that serve.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. Item 7C is first, the solid waste annual update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mine will not be as long as sheriff's. It'll make me look bad. It's okay though. They do a lot of things for the county, so it's okay. I am going to go over just a few things that we do at the landfill that some might realize, some might not. We had a very busy year in 2022. As you all know, we have new facilities out there. We moved in last February, actually the 14th. So we've been over there out at the new facilities a little over a year. And we also had in the process a new landfill cell that we have constructed ourselves at the landfill as well. So that was also completed last year. So 2022 was a very busy year for the landfill. We survived it and we're moving forward. So cell 8, which is the current cell that we just started placing waste actually on March 28th of this year. It was an approximately 9-acre cell. We do a lot of the dirt excavation ourselves. And in doing that, we only had to pay out to the contractor for the dirt work on the landfill for the landfill cell. We saved the county over $1.8 million on dirt excavation if we were to have hired that out. So we paid the contractor itself little over $200,000. So it does save the county a lot of money, and our employees do a very good job at what they do with the landfill cells and doing all the dirt work and all the excavation that it takes to create and make one of those cells. We've also been assisting the Sheriff's Department on the gun range. We did just finish one of the biggest berm. It's 25 foot tall. If you've not been out there, it's quite large. I did include in the report some pictures that a drone had flown over, and it was some pretty neat pictures of the excavation and the equipment that runs on top of those berms with a big dirt scraper. It can be kind of scary up top there with that and a motor grader. But our employees out there, they do excellent work, and I really appreciate all that they do and when they can do it, because we just fit this in basically when we can get over there to help out when we're not picking litter off of the roads, when we're not working on other projects we have out the landfill, but we do enjoy assisting the sheriff and working on that project. So we're still in process of doing the last 2 small berms, but we should be finished with those here shortly. So we still have to demolition the old scale house. We are going to have some repurposing on some of the building materials that are there. We have to, eventually that's going to be a landfill cell in years to come where landfill trash will be. So that's gonna all have to be removed, but we are going to do that ourselves. We won't hire out anything to do. We have the equipment to take care of things like that. We also are working on construction demolition site. We have 3 phases of that project, and we are currently placing waste of construction demolition in phase 2. So we're doing dirt excavation on phase 3 over at our construction demolition site currently for the next cell to be constructed for construction demo. Construction demolition cells do not require you to have a liner like they do in the landfill cells on our municipal solid waste side. We also do all the dirt excavation on all 3 of those cells at C and D. And a big number overview, we've saved almost $2 million on dirt excavation for those construction demolition sites, doing all that dirt work ourselves. Of course, right now it's time for spring cleanups. City of Hutch just had theirs the weekend of April 28th through the 30th, put roll-off boxes. I know that they were well utilized throughout the city. They did it last year, they do it every year. There are also some rural communities, City of Haven, City of Bueller, they do, City of Arlington. All of those do citywide cleanups around the area. And we have our household hazardous waste trailer. Those communities that are in Reno County that choose to have Jim, our household hazardous waste technician, he takes that trailer out, drops it off for the weekend. Citizens of Reno County, in the rural areas can drop off any paint chemicals, stains, lawn chemicals, any of that type of material can be dropped off to where it can be recycled at our landfill. So he just received the trailer back, I believe, from the City of Bueller this last weekend. In discussions of household hazardous waste on 2022, kind of some numbers that we received in, there was 71,326 pounds of household hazardous waste material that was placed in our reuse building and was available to the public. If you've not been out there, it is available to the community. There is no cost to come out if you want to receive some free paint, wood stains, lawn chemicals, spray paint, anything like that. You are more than welcome if you live in the city or the county of Reno, and you can come out for free and get as much as you want of that material. We received in 6,730 gallons of used oil that was sent off to be recycled in 2022. There was 7.5 tons of batteries that were recycled in Reno County for the 2022 year. We recycled and received revenue in from 502.41 tons of metal. It was picked up and we received revenue back on that. And we also do a recycling mattress program with Hutchinson Correctional Facility. They pick up mattresses and they recycle those mattresses, the material like the springs, the wood, the frames. They make dog houses. They make a lot of projects out there at Hutchinson Correctional Facility, and they pick the mattresses up for us. We don't have to deliver them. They do that for our service to Reno County. On the municipal solid waste, I did some numbers for what is brought in. Reno County brought in 98,478 tons of municipal solid waste. Our out of counties, which we have 5 contracted counties in Reno County since we are a regional landfill, brought in 32,367 tons for a total of 130,845 tons of municipal solid waste for the year. Construction demolition, we received in 25,151 tons. That was for Reno County and our out of counties. We don't receive a whole lot of construction demolition from our out of counties. They do have their own sites for C&D material. We do occasionally get some loads in that come from those counties though. Compost was received in at 2,047 tons. Our brush, we received over 8,000 tons of brush. And from our construction demolition revenue, we started charging for, as we know, construction demolition in June of last year. From June to December 31st, we received revenue of $127,752 from construction demolition revenue. We have one current open position of a general labor position at the landfill, but other than that, we are fully staffed. We also have anywhere between 1 to 5 temporary employees that their only job is to pick litter around the landfill, outside the fences, on the roads, from Clark Road down to Mohawk, on 4th Street to the City Bridge, and up to 6th Street before you get into South Hutch. We do checks on those roads quite often, as much as we can, and they work in every weather condition we have possible, and we really appreciate the fact that we are able to get staff to be able to want to do that job, because it's a very thankless job, but we like to thank them a lot, because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't stay in compliance with the state. We have 22 full-time employees at this time. This last year, we did a couple group tours to some groups that came out. Earth Matters was one of them, and I also presented this last December at the Rotary Club in Hutchinson. And just yesterday, there was a group of ladies that came out that wanted to learn more about the landfill. They had their board meeting out at our conference room there at the scale, and then there was a handful of them that actually got in trucks and toured the landfill and learned a little bit more about what the landfill is about. So that happened yesterday. I know there has been some discussion in past meetings, and I wanted to kind of give some numbers that I received actually from the Sheriff's Department on illegal dumpings that have been reported to the Sheriff's Department. So kind of give you an idea of what those numbers would look like from 2019 through the current year. And a total from January of 2019 through April 27th of 2023, there's been 33 household trash reported. There was 3 construction demolition, and 2 of those were actually carpet, which could also go into our municipal solid waste, and 5 furniture and mattresses that were reported from 2019 to 2023. So I thought that would be good information for everyone to know as well, the reports that have been made for illegal dumping and trash reported in the ditches. I did include some pictures of our cell 8 that we just opened. That's the top picture there. Just to give everybody a look and see what it looks like before you place waste. That's the very first week we started placing waste down on the bottom. So that does allow, when it's windy, we don't have to be up top so much, and we can go down below and start placing waste in that cell. And that's all I have.
Questions on the report?
The construction and demo intake for the money, was that commercial and residential combined?
Yes, it was.
What portion of that would have been residential? Do you have any idea?
We received 2,500 tons of construction and demolition from residential last year. I don't break out the numbers on revenues. When it comes in, it just comes in and it goes into the same account. So I have no way to, unless I run a different report to do the
What's the cost per ton?
$10 per ton or a $10 minimum. And if it's a mixed load that has construction demolition, it has trash mixed in, and they choose not to clean it out and separate, because we are not allowed to have trash in our construction demolition, it's $20 a ton with a $20 minimum. And areas around the county and other landfills, they are in the 25, 30, even more on construction demolition at some locations.
Commissioner Boatner?
About all I'd say is there's a lot of dumping that goes unreported. Your guys are getting some time saved, because I look at those numbers and I look at what's been dumped on our place or in front of our farms. You just pick it up and you guys eventually get it. If we don't pick it up as citizens, it gets picked up by township and county personnel, so.
And you're closer to the eastern Reno County line, Central County line too, as well, so.
And they charge by the ton on everything. And I truly think that makes a difference in the amount of illegal dumping.
And I might add in my update for conversation purposes, if anybody's watching, that we for some reason, we've implemented this C&D fee for the past almost a year now, and we do not charge for trash, we do not charge for mattresses, we do not charge for metal, brush, compost, batteries, anything else, but if you have wood waste, roofing material, sheetrock, and it has to be in big quantities. If you come in with a couple pallets or a door, we are not charging people that come across for that. So I wanted to make that known, that there has been those questions, but we do not charge for anything but our construction demolition.
Yeah, and,
Go ahead.
I want to say too that, my tour of the landfill a few months back, I really appreciate the job you guys are doing.
Thank
And
you.
from what I can see, y'all are doing an excellent job, so thank you very
Appreciate
much
that.
for that.
And it's not just me, I couldn't do my job if I didn't have the people that work underneath me, so I really appreciate what all they do.
A couple of questions before we go to the rate study. Last time we talked about doing an RFP for the gas system.
Correct.
Is that in the works or
Yes.
planned?
Yes, in fact, we're working on it. Patrick is working actually on
I
it.
have a draft. I've shown it to Megan and Randy, but we haven't discussed it and gotten over it. We actually were gonna go do that today. So, see if we can have something for you guys pretty soon to look at.
So it should be in a few weeks or months.
If you want it in the next meeting, you can probably have it then, I would think.
And then, I noticed, it might be on the other report, but it talked about our interest collections on the cash reserves we have. Do you know what our cash reserves are today, roughly?
From 2022, let me find, I ran a report for 2022. I don't have 2023's, but
Last time I remember it was millions.
it is.
5 or 6 million.
It's close to 6 million on the cash reserves on the operating side.
I know there's been conversation in the past about whether that's too much, and maybe it's a two-part question. Maybe you can explain to the commission why that's not too much.
Yes, so there's two things with the landfill. You have to have your operating funds to fund your facility year to year with your expenses. Then there's the option, also the requirement from Kansas Department of Health and Environment, it's state regulations there. on a post-closure, closure cost reserve fund that has to have money in that reserve fund once your landfill has officially been closed, or if someone from the state decides to come in and we're not doing our part, they shut our gates. We are at a minimum, we have to fund that facility and do all of the maintenance costs, and we also have our gas system, so that is included in all of this, for a minimum of 30 years after closure of a landfill. So that is one of the reasons why the costs of reserves and the cash balance, those have to be a high dollar amount, because it's just, they say at a minimum, so they need to see where our life cycle is of our landfill. We are currently 55, 60 years left of life at our current landfill from getting approved for vertical expansion. So with that being said, you know, it could be longer than 30 years after a closure of a landfill. So the dollar amount that has to be in those reserves funds have to be quite healthy.
Well, last time we talked, I don't think I ever quite understood like how we came up with the number we have today. Well, I mean, how do you estimate if we have another 30 or 40 years, then we have to pay for it 30 years after that? Like, how is the state happy with 6 million versus 3 versus 30?
There is not a set amount in the statutes that are wrote of what you have to have in your facility to operate. But I will tell you, with a gas system that we have, whether we're operating it or somebody else is operating it, the county is still going to be financially responsible for that gas system that'll be here forever. So I don't really have that exact answer for you on the dollar amounts and why they choose that, but
I don't have the exact dollar amount either, but I will say that industry best practices is 25% of your operating budget for each year past that closure amount. So that's where in our financial model, you see that's the minimum that we've set, is Reno County has chosen to meet the minimum of what is considered industry standard.
So it's 25% of operating times
the number of years expected. We know the minimum would be 30. That a lot of variables go into that 30-year mark. A lot of your remediative practices have to come back clean for that 30 years to be the end of the end. Post-closure on a landfill, they can go 70 or plus. So that 25% is what's considered best practices in the industry.
And what's our operating expense per year?
operating expense, we are at right around 4 million on the operating fund. The reserve side is actually, it fluctuates depending on what our gas wells and our gas system is costing us each year. So I would say, you know, best practice on an average anywhere from $4 million to $6 million every year, depending on if there's projects that come up with the gas system.
So maybe I didn't hear it right, but I thought I heard like 4 million times 25% times 30 is the number we should have.
Yes, and we're also, but you have to include in that the remaining lifespan of the landfill as well. So you're going to continue to put in that reserve fund for those remaining years that will come up with the dollar amount you need to close that landfill.
By the end.
Right. By the end of the end, right? Landfills have quite the life cycle.
The one other comment I would say is, and it was in the rate study, that it indicated that our estimated interest payments are 0.25%, which is horrible in this environment.
That's going to be my question.
I mean, can we, I don't know, who is it that, is that a county finance question? Or, like, you don't invest that? So
It's the county treasurer who holds all the money of the county in different accounts.
So the county treasurer has this $6 million in a 0.25% interest-bearing account today.
I know Brenda's always looking for all the money to find the best rates, CDs or whatever she can find with the banks. So I don't know the exact percentage. I think that's the projection or what the landfill used for their
I mean, this
analysis.
money has to stay there, right? Like, 1 second.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we should have, like, some sort of invested, like, You can invest it in treasury bonds for what, 4% right now. Like, and we don't need that money for 80 years.
Are we allowed, the question is, are we allowed to go outside of local on this?
There's various ways we can invest the money. The Kansas Municipal Investment, it's up at the state, they run it, and it gets usually better percentages than local banks. So we can work with the state to get a little bit better investments. But I don't know the percentage rates right now.
Can you ask the treasurer to provide the commission a report on our excess cash and how it's being managed? Commissioner Bogner?
You know, I brought that up here earlier meetings and kind of checked a little bit, and probably the biggest thing is 2.2, where, if I understand right, we're working off of 22 numbers.
Correct.
And these projections were put together with 22 numbers. 2.2 was probably reasonable then, but when I read it, I was just like you guys, that's not even close to right in today's world. But, you know, if you think back just that far back, that was probably kind of where things were happening. And they're basing their projections off of that. Well, just within a few months there, it went from 2 to 4. And you can do better than that, I know right now, but way better than the 4. So that could be part of why this looks skewed worse than it probably is. But I'm in full agreement. We need to get a handle on this and just what you requested, get, you know, figure it out, because there's a lot of dollars that need to be working for the county.
And commissioners, some of these assumptions are on the conservative side. So we hope to do better, we perform better, but we don't want to anticipate a great performance and then underperform. So
We're like, we could get 10 to 20 times off right now, so.
I was kind of still intrigued by your question about closures and reserve cash to be able to operate that. What is actually going to be operating to monitor the gas wells at that point, and the money that it requires to do that? You're going to be at an absolute minimum personnel. Somebody coming and not even maybe full-time necessarily.
We monitor our gas wells weekly. We'll have to continue after we close. Somebody will be there for that purpose. There is sampling that has to be done on groundwater wells that are out there as well. There's also, of course, just your maintenance of erosion control, mowing. You know, I've not dealt with a closed landfill, but on those lengths on a long-term life of a landfill, it is harder on the gas systems that are out there. Wells have to be re-drilled. You have to, we're going to be coming here in another few months about a gas expansion.
We've talked about all that in the past, but yeah, what personnel-wise, what are you looking at to maintain something like that in that situation?
It's closed. There will not be any personnel per se, but you're going to have some on staff for those type of a consultant of some sort to do the testing that's done.
Yeah. I just wondered.
So you're saying that you would probably not use your own staff at that point, you would use a consulting firm?
I mean,
Probably.
that's not my, I don't know what, at that point.
Could potentially be a lot.
Could be.
In that situation, it could be a public works to mow and do something like that to take care of it. But we hope that never happens. I know Don don't want to hear that, but that could be something added there. I mean, seriously, you would have a very, very minimum. So I'm kind of wondering myself how much you really, really need to have a reserve in that situation.
Well, if we've got the minimum that's required by law, then
but then you
there
decide
isn't
the
much
percentages you're throwing out at a quarter of your total, you know, for 30 to 70 years, you don't have enough yet.
I wish we had a crystal ball to say what could happen in the next
that's kind of
2 weeks, not
you know my
years down the
point.
line.
If we're doing the minimum, we're doing the minimum.
What is the number at the end?
30 million based on what they've said today.
There's not a set number on that.
There's not a set number because we don't know what vertical expansion might be approved. We don't know the ending amount of waste placed to give you that. So that number is estimated every year off of the projected life remaining in the Reno County specific landfill. And I agree with Commissioner Parks, your personnel would be minimal out there on a closed site. Your maintenance might be a little bit of the 25% of operations, that's going to be more heavily tilted towards maintenance and operations than it is going to be towards personnel or staff out there. You will still have to have certain equipment and such, and landfills are pricey, as you guys know.
Oh, yeah.
Commissioner, I may not have my figures exactly right, but according to my rough estimates, you're getting about $12,000 worth of interest a year off of that.
Sorry,
12,000
of what?
interest a year off of that 6 million?
I don't know.
And if you even got 4%, you'd be getting 240,000. Now, it just doesn't make sense to put it in at a point, I agree with.
I don't set those.
And in Megan's defense, she doesn't invest that money.
That's something that, hey, I'm not bagging on you, okay? But I just meant that we need to look at that seriously.
And we may be getting those numbers and that we're just looking at old projections. So I'd say we give Brenda a chance to.
Yeah, and every year we update with the actuals when we get the actual numbers in for the prior year. So you are looking at numbers that are post-dated a year.
Fact is, if we're only putting it in at interest rates, we need to look at Fed funds or some other place that gets more money. Yeah, and that way you can drop, we wouldn't have to continue looking at increased charges.
We'll expand this conversation and involve the treasurer and all of the cash we hold in the county, because we hold tens of millions of dollars of cash. It's probably a good time to check on that.
And each account, so each account that Brenda has, the treasurer has, is not based on the funds. So solid waste, I don't know, it's dedicated for them, but it may be piled in with everything that's in the general fund. As you'll see in different budget reports, our interest for the general fund is well above expectations. They may be taking part of the credit of solid waste closure fee too. I'm not sure if they're actually separate.
It's probably a good time to check where our exposure is on banks too, because they've been having trouble too. So, okay, sorry, a little detour there. I would echo, if you guys haven't had a chance to tour the landfill, Megan does do a very good job.
Yes, we are. It is a good tour.
Very well-run operation. Commissioner Vogel.
I'd like to say publicly that your handling of the little incident where we had a machine tip over, cool minds preserved when everybody was all right. There's a lot of damage in those kind of deals that happens after the fact because people panic. A lot of, you didn't move the machine till it got checked out. After it got checked out, you do what hoped happened, get in it and drive it off and go to work. If you move too fast, you can do a lot of damage in that little bit of time. I'm glad cool heads preserved there.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 7B, the solid waste fees.
All right. So about a month ago, we were here discussing, just for topic of discussion only, on our study session for solid waste and our fees, how we operate, why we operate the way we do. So back to a little background on that information before we start looking into the memorandum that we have before us. So Reno County started assessments as early as the 1970s for solid waste user fees. As Reno County, we took ownership of the landfill in April of 1977, and the first landfill cell that was ever constructed at Reno County was in October of 1996, was the first cell that was built in October of 96. So to go forth with the discussion, we took the information, and it has been years of financial models that we have revamped each year. We've looked and we finally fine-tuned something that we can actually look forward from now, from 5 years, from 7 years, almost 10 years out to where nobody can see. Like I said, a crystal ball would be great. But for the numbers that we have each year and all the data that we have, we can look forward to see where we need to be each year for landfill and landfill fees. It's been 2 years since we've done any kind of an increase on any of our fees out the landfill. And when we came to the study session about a month ago, we were kind of just going over the overview, but our recommendation, and you can look on the scenario 1, for 2024 is what we're talking about for rates. So I am recommending as my staff to looking at all the data that we have put forth, that we have no increases to our Reno County residents. So the Reno County user fee that is assessed on the tax bill would stay at $96. Your commercial user fee would stay at the $106. We do have out of counties that come in and we have a tipping fee to them that they pay currently at $34 a ton. We would recommend that we increase that fee to $36 per ton. And then we also have some special waste, what we call, that they have to get a permit from KDHE, Kansas Department of Health and Environment, on contaminated soils, asbestos, anything that requires those permits. Those would all increase by $1. Our construction demolition fee, I know there was some discussion on our construction demolition fee, and we are recommending that we leave that at a $10 per ton, $10 minimum for both Reno County residents and the commercial businesses that come out to Reno County for C&D. That would be our recommendation for the fees for 2024 structure. There was a discussion brought by, I believe, Mr. Weitzel and Mr. Parks about our residential construction demolition fees to residents. We estimated around 2,500 tons was what was approximately brought in from residents in 2022. If we were to take that fee off, like we have been asked to look at what we have for residents, it would not really change the needle per se on our costs and what we need to do for future years. The problem that I have, and we will be able to do whatever we need to do, is determining what is considered actually residential and what's commercial when they come across. Believe it or not, a lot of Reno County residents and citizens use our landfill and bring things out on their own. Whether it be construction demolition, municipal solid waste, tires, metal, compost, brush, all of the things that we offer for a service to Reno County, we do see a lot of traffic out at the landfill. So that would be scenario number 2. Scenario number 3, I know that we had some discussions on not a tipping fee, but a rate structure fee of some sort to get it off of the tax roll. There was a question that asked about that. But I based scenario 3, we looked at it based off of a tipping fee structure. We took Reno County revenue, not out of counties, just Reno County revenues as a whole was $4.3 million. In Reno County alone, just Reno County MSW, we're basing it off of municipal solid waste, there was 73,423 tons. When you take that and divide the two, it had a tipping fee of what could be at $58.75 per ton that would cost to bring trash to the landfill if we were to change the way we do our user fee, our structure we currently have. Looking at the forward years, the county's revenues are sufficient to fund its ongoing operations, capital and reserve requirements from the years 2024 to 2028. Unless things drastically change with trash or revenues that we receive in, we do look at this model every single year. I will come, if there is changes that need to be made and happen, I will come for recommendations to change or increase our fees, decrease our fees, whatever needs to happen. But looking forward right now, we're recommending that we leave the fees the way they are for Reno County in 2024. And I will take questions. I know there's going to be discussion, but I wanted to go over what I...
Okay, who wants to go first? Push your button. Commissioner Parks.
Go ahead, somebody else has got it.
Commissioner Bogner. Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I sure as heck wouldn't go to a different type of deal with tipping fees. I just see too much of it where I live. And, but I think from the sounds of it, we're probably providing what we need to provide as cheaply as we can to the public.
You know, I realize it's difficult for you to know what comes in there because there's a lot of small business doing remodeling, construction, bringing pickup loads in there. You don't know if that's resident or otherwise. I get that completely. But I think not only myself, but the ones that I have visited with around the county, it's been a burr in their saddle ever since the tipping fee was put in place. And there's got to be another way to handle that without having that for residents. They never paid it for years and they're not accustomed to doing that. I've had complaints from that to the fact they come out and have cash. You can't deal with cash. And you want a credit card, and that's very rare in this society that we have that, but some people have cash on them and they don't do that. They've been turned away. And so I think that's something we have to look at too through all this. But I don't, and second half of that is, I think you brought this up one other time, Daniel. I don't want to steal anything you might talk about, but the $96 passed on. I've had multiple residents where I've paid that for people. And the end user of that paying their trash service don't pay that $96. I shouldn't have paid either on my taxes if I'm not using that resident. And I think there's a lot of situations. We've got a town totally loaded up with rental houses. And so think of the rental people that are paying that $96 user fee that somebody else's, their trash cans, they're not having to encumber that cost. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it really kind of is in a perspective of looking at what the public sees and thinks about. I don't know why, and maybe I'm completely off, you can tell me why we couldn't take a smaller portion and add it on, and I said this too to begin with, on a utility bill or something like that, like you do some other services within the county, or why it couldn't just be a couple more dollars if we're going to leave it on the taxes and get rid of it. The bottom line, I want to see the tipping fee go away for residents. I don't care about construction and demo for the individual, I mean the commercial, but that has just been something since it got passed, I wasn't in office, I disagree with. So I'm just going to state that quite plainly. I don't think that ought to be passed on to the consumer when they're paying $96 a year. Or if you absolutely have to have that, then that needs to go up a couple dollars a year or so. It's only $8 a month now.
To answer your question to that, in previous commission, we had this discussion a couple of years ago when this user fee was brought up and the tipping fee for C&D was brought up. At that time, the commission that was here, the dollar discussion was at that 100, they did not want to hit the $100 mark. I don't know why, that's just what was, $100 was what they did not want to get to. So this in turn was a solution to offset those costs.
Well, I understand that,
So,
but this current commission's not that commission.
Yeah, and that was a
And so,
majority opinion, not everybody agreed with it.
yeah, and so. So I know that there's a feel about this panel a little
I'm
bit
just letting
different
you
than
know
that right now.
that's why we did what we did
I
at that
understand.
point.
I
So
understand.
now I'm willing to do whatever we need to do or
I know, I
whatever you as a
understand that.
commission want to do.
And again, I'll reiterate, because I didn't say, I appreciate the job you do, and I have toured it.
Yeah.
And you guys do a tremendous job, you really do. But this is just something that I think people are angry with, and I think we're not seeing all the trash that's being dumped. I have somebody that drives to work every day, and then 2 or 3 times he's had trash dumped coming down Pennington Road. So, it may not be in great volumes, but if we end up starting to clean that up, that $127,000 a year is going to shrink real quick.
And usually I go last, but I want to work with what's going on.
No, you're fair. Sure.
I think the thing that's been misunderstood time and time again is that when the commission asks for, or a commissioner asks for, hey, like, can we move the fee that's on the tax rolls to a fee that's on the service, we're asking for a tipping fee. We're not, or at least that's not my understanding. And I think it always goes into this conversation of tipping fees and how that's going to really disincentivize use of the landfill. To Commissioner Park's point, the idea would be that if you have a city trash bill and you pay $12 a month, you take 96 divided by 12, which is what?
$8.
You add $8 to that, So you pay an extra $8 every month, and then it gets remitted to the county. And then the actual user that's using the trash, producing the trash, pays for the landfill versus the confusion and the problems. You know, Commissioner Parks referenced one of many kind of misaligned issues, including property owners that have renters that produce the trash, and the property owners are paying it on their taxes. And so this makes a lot of sense to me, and it always gets misrepresented as a tipping fee. And I understand that may be kind of how we're thinking about it, but we need to stop calling it a tipping fee and call it a usage fee that's applied to the bill, franchise fee or whatever you call it. So I'm going to stop there just so we don't, I didn't want that attacked by Commissioner Hurst without proper.
Why do I get blamed for things?
I've worked with you long enough, I know it's coming. Commissioner Weitzel, you want to go next?
So I think I will be in favor of option B. I think there's still some more discussion that needs to be done with the municipalities and stuff, but I do agree with you that we do need to look at moving that fee off the tax rolls into the actual end users. And so, but I think there's more discussion that needs to be made as to, you know, how the city and how these different groups are going to collect that fee and get it to the county, because I don't think that will be as easy a process as it should be. But I also think that we need to stop the tipping fee for residential, commercial, and demolition. And I don't think it needs to be overly complicated. I mean, because I was giving this some thought this week. I mean, really two questions. What address is this from? Do you own the address? And if they answer both to you, or if they answer yes, that they own that address and it's an address in the county, then, you know, we take their word for it. And if not, then, I mean, I know there'll be some fraud there, but most people are honest, I think. And so I think the amount of fraud we get from that will not be a considerable difference. You know, and, you know, maybe we trust our neighbors, and that puts a lot less administrative burden on the county, because I know a lot of times in government you spend more on the process than you actually would save. And so I think the process needs to be simple, and we need to trust our neighbors, and hopefully they're honest with us. So that's my thought. And so that's where my thoughts are going to be on this.
Mr. Hurst.
Well, I think it's worth looking at. I think you're going to increase the cost when you hire someone, or the people that, anyone who's contracting to pick up trash from the city or rural. They're going to have to hire extra people. There's no getting around to it. They're going to have to hire extra people and extra facilities.
Are you talking about what are you talking about?
To change it from a normal $96, the way it comes out now, to transferring it over to a hauler, a contract hauler.
And I want to be clear, I'm not advocating for that today.
I think it's worth looking at, okay? Yeah. But I think we need to get more in depth to find out what the total cost is to those persons, because it may go up $2, it may go up none, I don't know. The other thing is, how do you differentiate between commercial and residential? That's gonna be, so I get a roof taken off, is that, and I hire someone to replace the roof? Okay. Now, you have more faith in people's integrity than I have, okay? Maybe that's just because I'm older, okay? I don't know.
Been caught a few
But I know
times.
that's gonna be a situation and a problem. They've already seen it from coming out of county, some people. there's a lot of concerns in that area that I would have to change. I guess I'm thinking of look at new alternatives, but on the same hand, the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's broke. Well, that's opinions. It's working, but also the other thing I wanted to bring out.
Hang on one second. I wanted to.
You can interrupt me.
Yeah, thank you. The last point you made related to, you were concerned about residential versus commercial differentiating. Commissioner Weitzel had a suggestion where the question could be, hey, do you own the property? And if you do, what was the second question?
What address is this coming from, and do you own that property?
So rather than kind of a clear definition that they would have to determine between residential and commercial, it's just a question of, do you own the property? And do you need to live here then, if you own it? Or you just need to own it?
My thought is if you own the property and you're doing your own work, then.
So it's basically do your own work, no fee. What do you think of that?
So if I hire someone to come out, do my roof,
And it's commercial.
If you do the roof yourself, then it would be residential.
That'd be impossible for you to track, I get that, Megan. Without ID cards, which I'm adamantly against registrations, we do that all the time.
There is landfills that ask for driver's license, but I don't want to.
Well, and one second, I was just trying to see if commissioners would come around to Commissioner Weitzel's point here. You have the floor.
That was definition that I was looking at, and how do you separate that out without a tremendous amount of additional labor to do that? The other thing I had reference to was just for your consideration, all of you, is if we do have and can get higher interest rates than what we're normally, if that's where we're at now, okay? If we're getting 0.0025, okay? Then should we be looking at the fact if we can get a higher rate of interest and put that back revenue into it, then is there a need to we look at, since 1/3 of the total revenue is coming from outside the county, do we look at just a $2 raise rather than a huge $4 raise for out of county? I'm just thinking that's we're at 32 right now. You're going to 36.
We're at 34 right now. We're going to 36.
Oh, I've misread it. Sorry about that. Okay, all right. But a third of our revenue comes from out of county, and maybe a third of the cost comes. It's delegated to that. But that was just something I was curious about. How difficult would it be to create another pocket in that revenue source or decrease that revenue source? So I'm not saying that I'm not looking at what you're bringing up, Daniel, is the fact that it goes back to the hauler, except the fact that how many people are going to drop that and decide they want to take it out themselves. There's lots of things that enter into this whole plan that's hard to change. Not saying it isn't changeable. I agree. And Megan's already said that if you go out with a little dab, like redoing a bathroom or something, that you just got a partial pickup load or something, they usually don't charge for that, right?
Correct. The other thing I will say, any of it's possible. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not saying the discussion doesn't need to be had and looked into, but there are haulers that have service contracts. For instance, City of Hutch, they have a contract with the City of Hutch. I don't know how long that contract is. It could be 2 years, it could be 8 years, it could be 10 years. I don't know what the language of that says. We need, those are things we have to look into. How that fee would be assessed. I mean, they have an agreement with a contract and this is the dollar amount. when we change our complete structure of how we assess the landfill fee, whether it be on the taxes or either way, I mean, those are things that, since it's never been done, it's gonna take a process to figure out how to do it, and if they will be in agreement to do some kind of a fee like that with the service providers. There's more than just a couple in the county. We've got
I think the
a
idea
handful.
would be the city would assess the fee, tack it onto the bill, remit it to us. That would be the easiest.
And, I mean, that's something that
Well, I-
Patrick and Randy would, I mean, but when you get into talk that, and Patrick can maybe talk more on it'd be like a utility and,
I don't know if I want to muddy the waters with that discussion now or some other time, but I mean, cities that have a franchise agreement or have an ordinance in place with who their hauler is or have a system would work that way. We'd have to come up then with a plan for the unincorporated residents and how to assess their fee would be probably the more complicated piece in my mind. And then we'd also have to make sure all the cities were okay with, were on board with the plan.
and the other flip to that, other landfills that do that same thing, they also charge for everything that comes out to the facility. I don't know a landfill that doesn't have a fee assessed on their trash bill that you don't pay when you bring other things out. Just for instance, Butler County, you get 2 free trash visits a year. They also pay a user fee on their tax statement. If they bring out anything besides trash, they pay a tipping fee. If they bring out more than 2 loads of trash a year, then they also pay the tipping fee to bring trash out to the landfill. So
It's a good system here. I mean, it's not complicated. We don't charge fees for everything. You had one more.
I was just glad that I had a place to go when I tore down a barn. Because I couldn't burn it out there. It had some asphalt shingles on it. I was just glad to be able to have a place to go with that myself.
Under the Whitesell plan, it would be free.
Well, I guess you got a point. Somebody pays for it, nothing's free.
Well, just a thought when we were talking about possibly the people in the collection of trash, business, household waste, various things. I never enjoyed being the government's unpaid employee. And that's what you're asking them to do, is collect the money for you and send it in, and if it's like everything else, you're the man who's responsible. I hire somebody, I gotta go, I didn't put the tax on him, but I've gotta go pull it out of his paycheck. I've gotta make sure it's there. If it's not, I will be talking to the legal department if I don't collect it and take it from them. Since when is it an individual's responsibility or an individual business's responsibility to do the tax collection unpaid for government, be it federal, local, or anywhere else? That always stuck in my craw. If he's big and bad enough to go get the job, he or she will be correct here. Then they ought to be big and bad enough to go out and pay their tax bill. Why am I saddled with collecting it for the government as an employer?
Because you're more reliable.
Well, then that's their problem.
Well, I mean, you make a good point, Commissioner Bogner, but it is reality. Sales tax works that way, employment tax works that way. I think it's just an easier way to collect it.
This is the usual fee.
But so I have a few questions. On just assumptions to start with on page 3 or 4, page 4, scenario 1, page 5, sorry. I still don't understand how we're projecting for the next 5 years we're not going to increase our fees. 10 years, actually, 10 years. No increase. Like how, that doesn't jive with inflation or any other kind of economic.
So if let me get to my sheet here. So we do consider inflation in this model.
Where?
It is based, it's in the model itself.
It's in the model itself. What you're seeing are results panels.
So, but we're not it shows here the sufficiency analysis that we won't have to increase fees for 10 years.
So what you'll also see though is that there is a recommendation to revisit the financial model every year in case we have instances of extreme inflation that are beyond what's predicted. We use CPI and other metrics to put the inflationary aspects into this model that gets you the results that you see here. So if you wanted inflationary increases where instead of Megan coming and asking for $2 from 34 to 36, it would be pennies every year.
But we have inflationary pressures on our costs every
Absolutely.
year, right? Like 3%. So our costs aren't going down, but our revenue's staying the same.
Those rates also include growth metrics in population and in tonnage based off of the historical data that Megan provides from the county.
But the tonnage graph, like the little red bars, look like they're going down.
The tonnage graph.
Back up just a little bit, right?
Yes, that is correct.
The tonnage is going down, our expenses are going up, and our
You slow your capital expenses when your tonnages go down because you need less airspace and the equipment lasts longer, the fewer tons that it moves. So you've got all kinds of forces in play in this example.
So, okay, I understand. And that would probably be helpful next year to show what our capital expenditures are versus our
Sure.
operational
include that.
expenditures. So what you're saying is total expenditures are going down.
Not your day-to-day operational expenditures,
Like capital and
like
operational
building new
together.
cells, increasing that gas well system, those kind of things. When you grow slower, those huge expenses are further apart. So your capital fund has
Convince
more
me
time to
that's
build
true.
up.
Like Megan, when have you ever came to the commission and say, we don't need capital expenditures? Like, those just seem to
We
keep
have,
coming
we
every
have, I
year.
mean, this system shows, we have an outlook on costs of our equipment, when we replace them, when we have to buy new.
When they can be rebuilt, which
When-
Megan has done a great job of doing rebuilds as opposed to new purchases.
And it's in that, all this data is in this model that we just don't show you.
Okay,
all of it.
so
It would be a really big report.
what happened like between 2020 and 2022 with our waste? It looks like it dropped by half.
COVID, it dropped or it increased?
Dropped.
Because I've got,
Between 20 and 2022, our waste has dropped.
2020 was COVID year.
So people were cleaning out their houses.
But that was less than 19. And 19 wasn't that much more than 18. Like what's occurring 20 to 21?
I mean, we just didn't receive as much waste in 2021. I don't know what the reasons are, or we have exact data with the tonnages that we pay $1 per ton to KDHE. We do tonnage reports every month. I do not know why the waste stream has decreased.
It looks like almost half.
I think it looks on paper, I mean, if you look.
You can get the actual tonnages over there.
I've got my tonnage report.
And the assumption is that's just going to continue lower.
The assumption is that we look at the past 5 years of behavior because 1 year, the pandemic taught us, don't ever look at 1 year as a snapshot of reality because things change so wildly.
But even then, wouldn't it be, like if 24 is our first estimated year and we took 19, 20, 21?
23 is going to be your first estimated year here because we don't have closed out finals for 23. So you're going to see estimates based off of partial year-to-date data.
Why wouldn't 23 be higher if it's the average of the last 5 years?
Because 23 is also taking into consideration the year-to-date data. So what Megan has as actuals projected out for the remainder of 23.
I don't see how our waste is going to continue to go down over time.
So I'll give you some, I have numbers from 2019, 2020. This is MSW, you know, we're talking tonnages. We were at, 2020 was 23,002.
Can you just give us total? Because that's what I'm seeing here.
Okay. I have it broke out by years because I thought maybe this might be what you want, so.
No, total, like not just municipal, total waste per
So
year.
municipal solid waste is any trash that goes to the landfill that's not specialty, it's not C&D, it's not asbestos, it's not brush or tires. So that is inclusive of everything that's dumped on your standard landfill face.
And that's what we're looking at in the graphic here.
So this is everything. You are looking at all the specialty waste,
C&D,
C&D,
brush,
tires.
compost, tires, metal, the whole thing.
It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
And we can provide backup data that got you those.
I think MSW is what you want to focus on, because if we get a hailstorm in here, that's gonna change the whole tonnage, okay? But if we just look at MSW, that's gonna be about as consistent as you can get depending upon population.
Right.
So, but it looks to me like,
And the census population numbers are what are utilized for your population factor for that
but
metric.
I agree. I have a hard time figuring out how the total tonnage goes down continually. I would agree with
The
that.
numbers are showing that they're going down continually. Our tonnages are showing that we, from 19 to 22, we have decreased on our tonnage for Reno County.
Well, 21. Yeah, maybe a little bit.
2020 on commercial, MSW was 80,000. In 21, it was 60,000.
Okay, well,
General public was
maybe
23
we
to
just get
23.
a
It
follow-
stayed level.
Maybe we
So
can just get a follow-up email.
Yeah, and like she said, your municipal solid waste, like Commissioner Hirsch said, it
It's
stays
pretty-
fairly stable.
your residential, you know, your general public MSW has stayed flat.
And what
It's
was
your
the-
commercial that increases and
You
decreases.
had like a business close that made your number, yeah, that really impacted numbers for 1 year. What was the name of that? I'm sorry.
Sunoco.
So like Commissioner Hirsch said, one
Siemens.
instance can send one of these numbers haywire for a calendar.
Recycling. I know at one time when Siemens was really big and in business here, they were sending all of their C&D waste. They were sending it, recycling it, the pallets, the wood
Well,
waste.
that just seems like an extraordinary situation, like where there's.
There's a lot of those.
Trash is
So,
gone.
like, if we're saying that's extraordinary, like, but we're plowing it in as the constant.
Because there's always an extraordinary event. There's a hailstorm, there's a business closing.
Those go up. Those are like.
Sure.
these
It
are
can go
going
up or down either way. I mean, recycling plays a factor in things. You know,
Well,
if you
that's
have,
going back to your landfill.
No, if people are recycling and it's diverting, you don't have flow control in this.
Is all of it going back to the landfill right now?
recycling? No.
I thought you said most of it was.
A lot of it comes back that China's not taking, but it's not it's not all of it. I don't have those numbers. I don't have those numbers of recycling
Okay,
from
it's okay.
the MRF.
I think so a couple of my comments, I think I support scenario 2.2. If the Whitesell plan isn't a good way to do that.
Well, I will tell you, Daniel, to interrupt for just a second. We do ask for, if they're bringing in roofing, before we started charging for C&D, we started this years ago. We still are implementing it today. We get a work order, what the address is, where it's coming from. We already do that.
Well, the 25,000 or 2,500 ton out of, what is that, 20% of total C&D roughly?
It is more commercial C&D. It's just
I just don't think it's even worth arguing. Like, if we've already classified 20% as residential, like, you've already classified it, right? You've asked them and you've defined it as residential. So we're just saying you could just use that same classification but just not charge for it.
How we differentiate residential to commercial now, most of them come in and they pay, and the commercials have an account that we bill every month for.
Let's just do that and not charge residential. I think
We'll do
that's-
whatever you guys decide you want me to do.
So
We'll do whatever.
I would support scenario 2 as well.
I mean, would that be workable? You know, just ask, hey, what's the address? And
We do that now. I mean, I will tell you, I am with Ron on this. People are not as honest as we'd like them to be.
You were gonna speak on.
But-
in front of you.
But you do that already. We're just saying don't charge for it now.
Okay.
Right. I mean, but you've already, like, the point of like, hey, how do you differentiate? You have to do that already because there's a different fee, right?
There's not a different fee for C&D. It's all the same for residents and commercial.
I just don't want to create a whole bunch more work for you guys. I want it to be as simple.
I mean, either way we do it, you're gonna have people that are upset because they pay it, and then you're gonna have people upset when you have a roofer come in that doesn't have a business on the side of their truck. They say it's coming from the residents, but it's the same truck that comes in every day. We, as the staff, have to argue with that person and say, you come in every day. How big is this roof? I mean, you have to differentiate of what is residential and what is commercial, because that's what will happen.
I mean, you have it differentiated already.
But there's no winner, right? So if you showed up and said, no, I'm residential versus being commercial,
I mean,
the fee is
I was
flat.
trying to make the point, you already do this. Like, because you have the residential numbers and the commercial numbers.
The reason we have the residential numbers is it's ran as a general public Reno County. That's how we know the difference. If it's a general public Reno County, if it's a business that's coming in, it's run under the business name.
So I
We
think,
do it, but it's if a roofer comes in and they wanted to put, I'm just using roofing because it's C&D, it's easy to differentiate. They put the same address down, 1 or 2 times a week. We see so many that my staff's not gonna remember that this address is, like I said, it's whatever you decide to do as far as, if
I
that's
think
what
you're
we
gonna
wanna
have
do,
an
that's what we'll
absolute
do.
mess if you
Hang on,
go
I can
District 2. You interrupted me and I'm gonna interrupt you.
No, you're out of order now.
Okay.
So, the question, I think we're just trying to clarify, like, if you've already classified it as residential, like, I think the idea here that we're bringing to you is just don't charge for those that you classify as residential. Does that make sense?
Yes, we'll make it work.
I mean, if people lie, don't stress about it. I mean,
So I'll get you in just a second. The one other comment I wanted to make is I still think our out of county's a little low. And I'd be in favor of raising it even a little bit more. I know we're scared of like scaring trash away from the county. I don't know that that's the worst thing in the world. Like, this isn't a profitable business that we're running. Like, we the more trash that comes in, the more expense, we incur. If there's less trash coming in, there's less expense, and
Not necessarily. You still have to run the same amount of equipment, the same amount of days, the same amount of personnel, because we have regulations we have to follow.
I just totally disagree with that. There has to be variable costs associated with your operations.
There are some, but they are
There's
minute.
So why don't we lower it and create a big trash enterprise?
If we're gonna start letting people come in, if they live in Reno County and they don't have, if we switch to a different system and you come in for free, you don't have trash service at all, you bring everything in for free, we lose our out of county of $1.1 million of revenue, where are we gonna make up for this loss of revenue?
Such an extreme example. By raising the out of county fee a few dollars, all of a sudden we're like, everybody's gonna leave.
What if you went and did, instead of doing increases every couple of years, you do small increases every year? To change that needle a little bit.
Last time you referenced other counties, it seemed like we were still a little low. I don't think this is
We're a little lower
profitable.
than others, but the closest is $38.
Okay. So Commissioners, you have another comment?
I think if you go Scenario 2, without charging residential C&D tipping fees only, I think you're going to put extremely amount of undue pressure upon our staff out there to help differentiate. In a real world, no, but in a real perfect world, no. But in a real non-perfect world, that is going to create a tremendous amount of confusion with the public. It's going to put a terrific amount of undue pressure, as much as I would like to say that we don't pay that. I don't know how until you get a real defined definition and method of doing this. Just to say we're going to do it without some time to let everybody know, I don't think that that's a very good deal at all, and I think you're going to find that out if you go with scenario 2.
Okay. Mr. Bogner, did you have anything else?
Well, I was going to ask earlier, financially, we seem to be okay, and we were going through the other numbers. How long have you been using that matrix with all its unseen stuff?
Over 12 years.
It's been developed.
So, and we're in good financial position.
I mean, every
using
year the
that.
numbers match up to what we put in the model every year, or revenues, or where we're projecting for the years to come.
I believe we
I'm
have
just
15 years of historical
questioning
data in the model.
how much we can trust. That seemed to be the
Sure.
crux of the
Sure.
thing is, can we trust what we're seeing?
It's worked.
Apparently it's working. So I just had to get that through my head.
Yes, I believe we have 15 years of historical data in the model. We check it annually against reality. So it has stayed right in step with what comes in as actuals after the close of that.
Yeah, thank you.
And in the future, we can append further schedules if you need more detail to back up these types of memos. We just give you the results panel because typically that's what decision makers want to see. What's the outcome?
So, I'll push my button. So ultimately, a couple of years ago, we started a tipping fee. I wasn't here. There was other
Just
commissioners.
last year, June 1st.
The C&D.
Bottom line reason why we did that. I just need one answer.
The Reno County user fee was going to increase to $100 a year.
That was unpalatable for the commission at that time.
It got, folks were the way they went, so that's where we're at today. And it did take us, I mean, staff, we worked hard a lot, not just myself, but Mary, I mean, a lot of data, a lot of time goes into figuring out what is best for the county. And that is what we want to do for the best interest of Reno County. So whatever we need to do to make that work, and we are willing to do it.
All right, okay. Let's get a motion on the table.
I got one more thing. So there was some discussion about moving this to the actual trash users. Can we have something next year that would look at, because I mean, that'll give us a year before it comes back.
You're gonna have to get into the franchise agreements with the individual cities.
Let's take that off.
Looking at that.
Yeah, Commissioner Wentz, if you would please, let's talk about that after. Like, let's get a decision on.
We give that its own study session.
So is there a motion for one of the scenarios, 1, 2, or 3?
I would like to make a motion to approve option 2 as presented by staff.
There's a motion for option 2 as presented, second by Commissioner Parks. Discussion that hasn't already been made.
So what are we looking at here on the cap?
1, 2 down there.
Okay.
Increasing or leaving Reno County user fees and commercial user fees at $96 and $106, increasing your out of counties to $36, and increasing your special waste to $1, and not charging Reno County residents C&D. And this will be effective January 1 of 2024.
You said in this scenario, may I ask a question? In this scenario, Reno County residents, okay,
Correct.
how do you differentiate between commercial and
Talk about that
residential?
next.
If I've got a business out there that has 20, 25 rentals. That's my business. Is that a business or is that residential?
That would be.
Well, let me propose something here. Either we're gonna have to define it, or you're gonna have to let her figure it out. And I don't think, if the commission wants to hash that out right now, we can. It's not a motion on the table.
I would think staff would want some direction on this.
What I would propose is either we can hash out an amendment. Right now, there's a motion on the table. If we really want to provide directive on how this is decided, you have to put it in the amendment, or we have to stay on the motion that's here. I would suggest.
Set my pace.
I would suggest we continue with this motion. We've got time. It's germane to the agenda item. We can talk about whether we want to prescribe how they pick between commercial and residential. But there's a motion on the table. Is there any other discussion on the motion to approve scenario 2? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hurst,
No.
Commissioner Parks,
Yes.
Commissioner Bogner,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitesall,
Yes.
Commissioner Friesen.
Yes, motion passes 4-1. So maybe the next question here is is there a motion to prescribe how staff should define commercial and residential C and D? If there is not, I would assume staff will figure it out.
Okay, I would like the commissioner's ideas on, I have 5 units, or I have 20 units.
I really like
my business.
Commissioner Weitzel's idea of like, hey, do you own this? And if you're doing your own work, let them through. That makes a lot of sense to me.
But we haven't defined that. We haven't given them, do your own
Well,
work.
I think the only way you can do that is through a registration. You have to register your address. It'd be either a scan card when you come through. And again, that's extra work for you guys to have to do, to define that.
A software program.
Huh?
A software program that would have to track that as
I
well.
know, and that's an elevated cost
What did they
too.
just ask?
Here, I mean,
Hey, 1 second. Patrick has something.
So I used my button for the first time.
It worked.
Yes, commissioners, now that there's some consent, now that we have some direction as to where you want to go, which is what I was waiting for. In 2021, this commission passed a resolution about construction demolition tipping fees. I think, a technical solution, I think, here is to rewrite or amend that resolution to be what you wanted to say. What it says now is construction demolition debris is assessed a tipping rate at $10 per ton, and if it's less than a ton, it's the $10 minimum. To me, a way out of this, I don't know if, from what I'm hearing you guys say, is maybe we just don't, maybe if it's less than a ton, it's just a 0 fee. So in other words, if someone's bringing less than a ton, and then we can add in their residential or in commercial if you want to, but I was just looking at the resolution. I think what I'm hearing a lot of people say is, if it's sub 1 ton, you don't want to make people pay it. We could possibly just amend the current resolution to say something like that, or we could amend the resolution to say that with differences between commercial and residential. But I think the path forward is either to strike the old resolution completely or amend, or probably rewrite it to the way you guys want it. And to me, it's kind of like you guys were talking about, a de minimis amount of landfill waste that you don't really want them to assess. And then the other debate is whether or not you want it to be commercial or residential.
I like that idea, under a ton. That pretty well, lets individuals do that.
That lets the pickup loads in,
Basically, yeah. Basically, if it's a truckload, pickup truckload, they're just going to get waived on is what I think it would probably be the application of that.
I think that solves a lot of problems with them defining what it is.
I still don't think it's the end of the world if somebody gets through and they lie. Like, we're the analysis already shows that we know 80% or so is commercial, and that's already defined, and the 20%, whether they're lying or not, it's a de minimis issue in the rate structure. It doesn't, we're arguing about nothing.
Well, as I read this resolution, if we just remove the minimum per load, I don't think we have to define construction versus residential. We can just move on and just say basically, now, I think the staff's point is you're gonna have some people who are taking a truckload frequent, you're gonna have some frequent customers who are taking advantage of the system, but then the people who are weak, but you guys have debated that over and over and voted on it, so other than that, it will make it easy on everyone.
Would you accept another motion regarding this?
You're free to make a motion.
I would move that we instruct the county councilor to present a new or amend the present policy regarding C&D to include anything under a ton that regardless of classification, that is free. That way, something to that effect, okay? New policy.
What if we just asked the county councilor and the administrator to circulate the recommendation? So I'm not sure everyone's all on the same page about, because you're implying, and I'm sorry, I should ask for a second first. Is there a second on this motion? Don't hear one yet.
That's fine.
You're implying, I think, that there still potentially could be a fee on residential if it's over a ton. I mean, you can get over a ton of shingles in your pickup pretty quick.
Just give me direction. If you guys don't want a tonnage at all, we can rip that off too. I just need a consensus and I can draft it.
What I was proposing here, Commissioner Hurst, is like, there seems to be some consensus bubbling up here, but it's not completed yet. I think staff can develop something for our next meeting. There'll be some.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? I think, so we'll call it a consensus, staff come back to us with a recommendation and work with each commissioner directly on
And are we okay with not spending $5,000 on a new software program to track this and just asking people and hoping they'll be honest? I mean, is that something that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the direction of whatever you want me to do.
Well, I mean, I'm looking for your input. So.
I mean, trying to determine what's what, we'll go off of, commercial tags. If it's roofing that's coming in, roofing's gonna be commercial. They get paid to take roofs off by insurance companies, so they're gonna be billed for roofing. If, like I've said before, if somebody comes in with just a couple things of C&D, we're not charging them today anyways. So we'll just, the pickup loads that come across.
Well, I think the tracking that you were talking about would be reliant on the determination of how they do and do not charge.
We'll still ask for work orders on projects, roofing specifically, big construction projects that are coming in, we know. I mean, so if there's no business name on the side of a truck, but it, is more, I mean, if it's a large amount of C&D and it comes in, it's gonna be considered commercial. I mean, I know the ones bringing in pickup loads of stuff, that's not, we'll make a determination.
The one thing the last item here, I think there was some movement across the commission here on exploring a conversation about getting the fee applied directly to the user. I was wondering if staff could research that over the next few months and we get that on a study session this year sometime.
Yes, and I preliminarily have started looking into it, and I have some experience with cities on municipal franchises. The thing to keep in mind is that kind of project will take a while, in part because Kansas has some statutes regarding changing municipal franchises on waste that will require a longer publication and wait process. Something like on the order of 18 months is required frequently. So you're looking at a couple of years to get from A to B, even if you fast track it. But anything's possible. I just want to make sure everyone understands. And the reason for that is to avoid a disruption. You know, it's solid waste and nobody wants a quick change and confusion of who's picking up what and someone getting lost in the lurch. So to do that, there's a long kind of process. But we can go over how to do it and start talking about it.
Can we create a resolution that just assesses a fee? Don't answer that. Would you look at that to see if that's legal?
I mean, we have some, there's a lot of different ways that we can do this as long as KDHE can look at our plan and says, yeah, that's financially feasible. As long as it's going to meet our requirements to have a reserve fund and keep the landfill functioning, we have some options, but we just have to have a good, well thought out plan.
Let's say by end of sometime in June, can you provide an analysis back on the taxable, or if it's not a tax, of the accessibility and so forth?
Yeah, we can do some study session about what the options are and what the problems are.
Is everybody okay with it? All right. Did we get through everything? Okay. Did you get your answers, Megan?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Putting that definition on residential versus.
Yeah, we just have to, I don't know, the resolution that I turned in, you don't want them to sign it today, then, these fees aren't going to be into effect, and these changes, I should say, are not going to be taken into effect until January 1 of 2024.
And we didn't have a resolution to approve anyways here. We just approved the scenario 2. So
There was a resolution in the packet, but it was based on scenario 1.
it's not here to sign. All right. Okay. Anything else? Staff reports.
Okay, I have on monthly reports in here. This is aging, public transit, appraiser, automotive, clerk, community corrections, communications, the DA, and emergency management. I want to see if anyone has any questions on any of the reports that may be listed in here.
Questions for Ed?
Okay, also wanted to just remind everyone the joint meeting with the city is May 23rd. We're going to have that at the Reno County Correctional Facilities Conference Room out at the county jail. And we will have lunch, and it'll be starting around 11:30. So hopefully the business meeting that will take place in this room will be done so that you guys can get out there and meet with the city of Hutchinson on that date, at that time. And then I was wanted to mention in some conversations with Chairman Friesen, we were looking at the medical consultants for the health department, the application, and the timeline was pretty short, and I don't think we reached as many people in the community that may have been interested. So my plan was to have it stay open until the end of May, to have, in case there's other doctors. We have 2 applicants at this time, but just to get more applicants for you guys to be able to review, I wanted to wait until the end of this month if there's no concern with that.
Good idea.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, I know there was public comment today, And I don't think the commission was even aware of the applicants yet, and that wasn't publicly disclosed. I think there may have been some deductions based on the knowledge that two different applicants applied, and one of them approached the media already, so.
And at the meeting that was referenced, I was there and I was asked if I knew who had applied, and I was like, no, I've got no idea, so.
Yeah. So I just wanted to be clear that I'm not aware of staff or myself that disclosed who the applicants were. I think there was just some assumptions, so.
I was asked by the press from the Hutch Post or Nick Gosnell, and I wouldn't give him the information just because you guys had not been told who had applied. So I didn't want it being out in the public or in the media before you guys saw the list.
So it sounds like there's consensus, Randy, to let that extend and notify the public of that extension. So.
Okay. And then just to kind of give you notice at the next commission meeting, you're going to see the Pishney the finalization report for Pishney of kind of the checklist. They're pretty much off-site. They're done now. The final payments, there's $30,000 for window restoration, the remaining amount, $4,098 for weatherization. They did give us credit, I think of a change order, credit of $12,850 for some things they did not get repaired that we were done with them. So you'll see more of this information at the next meeting, but I wanted to kind of give you a heads up, because if you have questions, get with me before the packet goes out next week when it goes out. So $12,850 from the original cost is what that amount less is what we're actually going to pay Pishney. The change orders, the roof repair that had to be made because of them is in there. The carpet credit, irrigation credit for the yard, and then district attorney's desk credit for some things that got damaged with water. So I just kind of wanted to give you a heads up on that one. Again, get with me if you have any questions on that. And then also wanted to let you know that office furniture, we're meeting about office furniture for some of the renovation areas of the courthouse. The DA is going to get a lot of new stuff. I don't know if they've met with a contractor yet, a company. I know IT and administration have looked at what we can use, what we need in addition for some of the additional space. So I'll bring that back to the commission kind of as a review. But if we use Han furniture, then it's with the state contract. We probably wouldn't put that out to bid. If we go with different furniture, we'll probably look at a bidding process. But just kind of wanted to give you an update. That's kind of where we're at. I don't have a cost estimate of what it's going to take to furnish the new offices, but it's not going to be cheap. But we do have the money that is in the general fund set aside for that. So we have adequate funds for that without kind of robbing a different line item. So we're in good shape there. That's all I have.
Randy, you and I talked about miking up the commission and staff, and you might, because I know we want to get a mic there and the acoustics are a little weak here.
Right, I've talked with Mike, the IT director, and he's still looking into that because we wanted to get with McClellan Sound, who set up the audio and visual, to make sure that whatever we put in here for microphones does not interfere with the recording for people watching at home. So we are looking into that. I don't have an answer at this time.
The idea would be to basically amplify all of our voices, including the speakers, so people can hear in the audience and we can hear the speakers a little better. So, is that it?
Yes.
Thanks. Patrick, do you have anything?
Are you not?
Let's go right to left. Mr. Weitzel.
So I didn't have a whole lot. I did kind of want to reiterate that the meeting I went to, I mean, yes, people said their piece and had their opinions, but they were all citizens of Reno County, and they're entitled to have their opinions. I've certainly got my opinions, and but there's no foregone conclusion. I don't even know who the applicants are at this point. And we're going to leave it open until the end of May. So, hopefully the commission will make a good decision on a route forward. But other than that, I again just want to thank everybody in the county for all the hard work they do. And wasn't a whole lot went on the last 2 weeks.
Commissioner Hurst?
Saturday was a grand opening at the start of this season for Farmers Market. They had a very successful day. There was a lot of people there, a lot of vendors there, good supply of vendors there, vegetables, all kinds of things. And as you've maybe read in this morning newspaper, a little bit of comments about that. But there was a good selection and a good crowd. And, mention some things, and I think it's important that we pay attention to our people in our district and the county about what they prefer when we just make a decision.
Mr. Parks?
I didn't have a whole lot. I did attend the annual commissioners meeting out in Hayes a couple weeks ago, and it was a good meeting. Had a lot of good interface with some other commissioners. That was a great part of it. The very last morning, they saved going over tax rules, and so they knew we were all going to be asleep anyway. So I guess that's why they did that. But made a lot of great connections, a lot of great information. And so at that time, there wasn't a lot of the laws that had either been the vetoes overturned or some of those things. So they went over a few things out there, but some things have changed since then. But I appreciate the support and letting me go and do that. So it was worthwhile, I think. So.
Well, I've been meeting with various constituents on various things. Pretty much that says it there, but what I'm seeing is one of our biggest economic drivers here in the county, the farm income type deal. I think we're in for a pretty hard hit. We're into our budgeting, and there's a lot of wheat being zeroed out. Of course, then you don't have to truck it, you don't have to store it, you don't have, there's a lot of associated businesses that are tax revenues may change, is what I'm getting at. It's, you don't buy new equipment, you don't fix the old ones like you would if you were expecting to have some money. So I look for that sector to get hit pretty hard. Some of the insurance estimates on this drop are coming in lower even than I thought. So I've been doing this a long time, so that's my thing. When we're going forward with the budgets, we better be thinking along those lines. There's a lot of associated businesses that aren't going to be doing the business they normally are. Thank you.
I appreciate everyone coming today. I wanted to just reiterate, thank the solid waste team and engineers on their work. I hope it's not interpreted as if we're not happy here just because we're having debate amongst ourselves on these decisions. That's not necessarily, or that is a reflective on your good work. It's just something that we're working through here. So thank you for your patience on that and your hard work. That's all I had. This is a shorter meeting than normal. Last call for anything. Hearing none, we'll adjourn for today. Thank you.
Thank you.